The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. Mincio Park's boots as she stood at the edge of the excavation site. She had been digging in the Martian soil for 3 months, searching for remnants of early human colonization. What she found instead would change everything humanity thought they knew about themselves. The ground-penetrating radar had detected something impossible. Beneath the surface, buried under 2 kilometers of rock and sediment, lay a structure so massive it dwarfed anything humans had ever built. The readings suggested it was at least 15,000 years old. That was the impossible part. Humanity had only reached Mars 400 years ago. Mincio wiped the dust from her datapad and checked the readings again. Her hands trembled slightly. Around her, the excavation team worked with careful precision, removing layer after layer of ancient Martian soil. They had broken through to the structure's outer hull 3 days ago. The metal was unlike anything in the galactic database. It seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, and scanners could barely penetrate its surface. "Dr. Park, you need to see this," called out J1, her assistant. He stood near the entrance they had carefully cut through the hull. His face was pale despite the hours spent under Mars's dim sun. Mincio climbed down the ladder into the structure. The interior stretched beyond what their portable lights could illuminate. The walls were smooth and covered with symbols that looked almost like ancient Korean script, but older, more primitive. As she stepped inside, lights began to activate along the corridor. They flickered at first, then grew steady, bathing everything in a soft blue glow. "The power source is still active," J1 whispered. After 15,000 years, they walked deeper into the facility. The corridor opened into a vast chamber that seemed to extend for kilometers. Massive cylindrical structures rose from the floor to the ceiling, each one humming with barely perceptible energy. In the center of the chamber stood a platform with a control interface covered in the same ancient symbols. Mincio approached the interface carefully. As her hand moved close to the surface, the symbols began to rearrange themselves, shifting into modern Korean. The transformation was smooth, as if the system was translating itself for her benefit. "Defensive Installation 47, she read aloud. "Status: dormant. Awaiting authentication. Defensive installation?" J1 moved closer. "Dr. Park, what was humanity defending against 15,000 years ago? We were still living in caves." J1. Before Mincio could answer, her communicator buzzed. The message was from Earth's Galactic Council representative. The Council had detected the energy surge from the facility. They were sending observers immediately. More concerning, the Valorian Empire had also detected the activation and was dispatching their own team. The Valorians were the galaxy's dominant military power. They had ruled over 200 star systems for the past 1,000 years. Humanity, by comparison, had joined the Galactic Council only 2 centuries ago. Humans were considered a minor species, technologically advanced enough to be useful, but not significant enough to be threatening. The Valorians had made it clear on many occasions that they viewed humanity as children playing with borrowed technology. 2 days later, the Valorian delegation arrived. General Thaxos led them, a massive being covered in metallic scales that reflected the facility's blue light. He moved through the chamber like he owned it, his 3 eyes scanning everything with undisguised greed. "Remarkable," Thaxos said, his voice rumbling through the translation device. "You humans stumble upon ancient technology and immediately assume it belongs to you." Mincio stepped forward, keeping her voice level. "This facility is on Mars. Mars is human territory under Galactic Council law." Thaxos laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The Council's laws are flexible when dealing with technology this powerful, especially when the species claiming ownership barely understands what they have found." "We understand enough to know this is ours," Mincio replied. The Galactic Council observers arrived an hour later. They were a mixed group representing 5 different species, all looking nervous. The lead observer, a bird-like creche named Tillix, examined the facility with quick, jerky movements. Dr. Park, Tillix chirped. The Council requires that you cease all activation attempts immediately. Whatever this facility is, it represents a potential threat to galactic security. We haven't been trying to activate anything, Minseo protested. The facility is responding to our presence on its own. As if to prove her point, another section of lights activated deeper in the facility. The hum of power grew louder. Thaxos moved toward the control platform, but Minseo blocked his path. Touch nothing, General. We don't know what any of this does. Yet, Thaxos loomed over her, using his considerable size to intimidate. Step aside, human. The Valorian Empire has maintained galactic peace for a millennium. We are best suited to secure this technology. By secure, you mean take for yourselves, J1 muttered. Thaxos's scales rippled with barely contained anger. You forget your place, primitive. Your species achieved spaceflight only when we allowed it. You exist in space because we permit it. The tension in the chamber grew thick. Minseo refused to move, and Thaxos refused to back down. The standoff might have turned violent if the facility itself had not interrupted. A holographic display erupted from the central platform. It showed images of Earth. But not the Earth anyone recognized. The continents were in different positions. Vast cities covered the landscape. Cities built with technology that made modern human engineering look simplistic. Ships moved through the atmosphere, sleek and powerful. Then the images changed. The sky above the cities filled with alien vessels. They were firing on the planet below, and the cities burned. Humanity fought back with weapons that tore space itself. The battle was devastating. Billions died on both sides. The hologram showed the construction of the Mars facility and 46 others like it, scattered throughout the solar system. It showed these installations firing in unison, and the alien fleet simply vanishing. Not destroyed, but erased from existence. The war ended in hours. The final image showed the ancient humans making a choice. They deactivated the installations, buried them, and wiped all records of their existence from history. The hologram displayed text in that ancient script, which again translated itself. May our children never need what we have built. The chamber fell silent. Every being present understood what they had just witnessed. Humanity had not been primitive 15,000 years ago. They had been advanced enough to build weapons that could erase entire fleets from reality. Then they had chosen to forget. Thaxos was the first to speak, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. This changes nothing. The Valorian Empire demands immediate control of this installation, and all others like it. Minseo turned to face him, and for the first time since the Valorians arrived, she smiled. No, General. This changes everything. Deep beneath their feet, in the core of the facility, ancient systems continued to wake from their long sleep. The Sentinel was stirring, and it was deciding whether the threat had returned. The Valorian Empire did not waste time with diplomacy. 48 hours after the holographic display revealed humanity's ancient secret, General Thaxos delivered his ultimatum directly to Earth's government. The message was broadcast across all human colonies and to every member of the Galactic Council. The technology discovered on Mars represents a threat to galactic stability, Thaxos announced. His image dominating screens across human space. The Valorian Empire, in its role as guardian of peace, hereby demands immediate and complete control of the Martian installation and any related facilities. Humanity has 48 hours to comply. Failure to do so will result in military occupation of Mars and the forced seizure of these assets. Ambassador Jin Ho Choi sat in the Emergency Council meeting on Earth, surrounded by humanity's leadership. The room was full of fear and anger in equal measure. Humanity had spent 2 centuries carefully avoiding conflict with more powerful species. Now they faced the galaxy's strongest military power, demanding surrender of something they barely understood. "We cannot fight them," said the security minister, his voice tight with frustration. The Valorian fleet has 300 warships. We have 47 defensive platforms and a handful of patrol vessels. It would be a massacre. So we just give them weapons that can erase entire fleets from existence? Another council member demanded. Hand the galaxy's biggest bully? An even bigger stick? Jinho listened to the arguments swirl around him. He thought of Minseo Park, still on Mars, still exploring the facility that their ancestors had built. She had been sending reports hourly, each one revealing more impossible truths about humanity's forgotten past. On Mars, Minseo stood before the central platform again. The facility had been responding to her presence more and more. The ancient symbols appeared wherever she walked, always translating themselves into Korean for her benefit. It was J1 who had figured out why. It's reading your DNA, he had explained, showing her the scans. The facility is keyed to specific genetic markers. Markers that you carry. Not everyone does. We tested the whole team. Only you and 2 others have them. Now Minseo placed her hand on the platform, and the interface came fully alive. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing the status of all 47 installations scattered throughout the solar system. They were all awakening, responding to the Mars facility's activation. A voice spoke, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. It was calm, measured, and spoke in perfect modern Korean. Authentication detected. Designation: Sentinel. Current status: Standby mode. Awaiting threat assessment. Minseo's breath caught. You're an AI? That term is insufficient but acceptable. This system was designed to defend humanity from extinction-level threats. Are you authorized personnel? I don't know, Minseo said honestly. I'm an archaeologist. I found this place by accident. Genetic markers confirmed. You carry the bloodline of the builders. You are authorized. The Sentinel's voice held no emotion, but somehow conveyed patience. What is the nature of the current threat? Minseo explained the situation as simply as she could. The Valorian Empire's ultimatum, humanity's military weakness, the demand for surrender. The Sentinel processed this information in seconds. The Valorians were not present in galactic records when this system was constructed, analyzing current threat level. Holographic displays shifted, showing detailed scans of the Valorian fleet that was already moving toward Mars. Assessment: Conventional military force. Threat level: minimal. Do you wish to engage defensive protocols? No, Minseo said quickly. I need to understand what you are first. What you can do. The Sentinel showed her. Holographic displays revealed the full scope of the defensive network. 47 installations. Each one capable of generating what the ancient humans had called spatial displacement fields. The technology did not destroy targets in the conventional sense. It removed them from local space-time entirely, placing them in stable pocket dimensions where they could neither escape nor cause harm. The builders created this system after conventional warfare nearly destroyed Earth, the Sentinel explained. They designed weapons so powerful that using them would make further conflict pointless. Then they hid the weapons, hoping their descendants would never face threats severe enough to require their use. Why hide them? Minseo asked. Why not just keep them as a deterrent? Because deterrence requires fear, and fear breeds escalation. The builders believed that true peace came from choosing not to fight, not from being too strong to challenge. They gave you the option to defend yourselves absolutely, but hoped you would build a civilization that never needed to. Minseo thought about that philosophy. 2 centuries of human history in space had been defined by careful diplomacy, by choosing cooperation over conflict. Humanity had deliberately kept its military small, focusing instead on trade, research, and building relationships. Now, she understood why. It was not weakness. It was choice. The Valorian fleet arrived at Mars exactly on schedule. 300 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. General Thaxos commanded from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, a vessel 2 kilometers long and bristling with enough firepower to destroy cities. Jin Ho Choi opened a communication channel from Earth. His image appeared on every Valorian bridge. General Thaxus. I am Ambassador Jin Ho Choi, representing Earth's government. We request additional time to consider your demands. Thaxos's laugh echoed across the channel. Time to do what, Ambassador? Pray? Cry? You have no leverage. Your military is pathetic. Your technology is borrowed from species that pity you. You found ancient weapons you cannot even operate. The Valorian Empire offers you a choice. Surrender peacefully, or be forced to surrender. Either way, you will surrender. What if we refuse? Jinho asked calmly. Then we will take what we want and destroy anything that resists. Do not mistake our patience for weakness, human. We have conquered 200 worlds. Mars will take us less than an hour. Jinho glanced at the secondary screen showing Min Seo's signal from the Mars facility. She gave him a slight nod. They had discussed this moment, planned for it, hoped it would not come to this. But the Valorians had made their choice. General Thaxus, you are making a terrible mistake. The only mistake is yours, Ambassador. Thaxos cut the communication and turned to his fleet commanders. Begin landing operations. Secure the Mars facility. Destroy any human forces that resist. The Valorian warships moved toward Mars. Troop carriers launched, filled with soldiers ready to take the installation by force. Minseo watched them approach on the Sentinel's displays. The first troop carrier landed near the facility's entrance. Valorian soldiers poured out, weapons ready. They advanced on the excavation site, where Minseo's team had first broken through. Then General Thaxos made his fatal error. Fire a warning shot at the facility, he ordered. Show these humans we are serious. A beam of concentrated energy lanced down from the Eternal Dominion. It struck the rock near the facility's entrance. The explosion killed 3 members of Minseo's team instantly. J1 was one of them. Minseo watched through the displays as her friend's life signs vanished. She felt tears on her face, felt rage building in her chest. The Valorians had not just threatened. They had killed. They had taken lives to prove a point. Sentinel, she said, her voice shaking but clear. Defend humanity. Authorization confirmed. Activating all defensive installations. Engaging target discrimination protocols. Non-lethal displacement preferred. When possible. Across the solar system, 47 ancient installations began to glow with impossible energy. They had slept for 15,000 years. Now they woke, and the galaxy would remember what humanity had chosen to forget. The Valorian fleet detected the energy surges immediately. Alarms blared across every ship. Thaxos stared at his tactical display in disbelief, as power readings climbed beyond anything his instruments could measure. What are they doing? He demanded. His tactical officer's voice was barely a whisper. Sir, those readings are impossible. Nothing can generate that much power. Thaxos opened a channel to all ships. All vessels. Destroy those installations before they can fire. Target everything. I want nothing left but debris. The Valorian fleet opened fire. 300 warships unleashed their full arsenal at the ancient human installations scattered across Mars, Earth's moon, and the asteroid belt. Enough firepower to sterilize planets hammered into targets that had not been touched in 15,000 years. Every shot passed through the installations as if they were not there. Sir, the tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with fear. Our weapons are having no effect. The targets are phasing in and out of normal space. We can't touch them. Thaxos felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare. He felt afraid. In the Mars facility, Minseo stood at the center of a storm of holographic data. The Sentinel showed her everything, kept her informed of every decision, every calculation. She was not just activating a weapon, she was directing a symphony of precision and power that her ancestors had composed 15,000 years ago. Engaging displacement protocol, the Sentinel announced. Beginning target removal. High above Mars, a Valorian destroyer simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, weapons firing, crew shouting orders. The next moment, the space it had occupied was empty. No explosion, no debris, no trace it had ever existed. Then another ship vanished. And another. General Thaxos watched in horror as his fleet disappeared ship by ship. His tactical display showed each vessel simply blinking out of existence. 300 warships, the pride of the Valorian Empire, being erased from reality by an enemy that could not be touched. All ships, retreat, he ordered. Emergency, faster-than-light jump. Now, but 30 ships had already tried to jump to safety. The Sentinel had predicted that response. Displacement fields surrounded each vessel before they could activate their drives. They vanished with the rest. In 14 minutes, the Valorian fleet went from 300 ships to 1. Only the Eternal Dominion remained, held in place by fields it could not break, facing weapons it could not fight. Minseo looked at the holographic display showing Thaxos's flagship. She had the power to make it vanish like the others. The Sentinel was waiting for her command. She thought of J1, dead because Thaxos wanted to make a point. She thought of the 300 ships full of soldiers who had followed orders. She thought of her ancestors who had built these weapons and then buried them, hoping for peace. Sentinel, open a channel to the Eternal Dominion. General Thaxos's face appeared before her, scales pale with fear. Where are my ships? He demanded, trying to maintain authority even as his voice shook. Safe, Minseo told him. Your crews are alive, unharmed, held in stable dimensional pockets. They will remain there until we decide otherwise. You destroyed an entire fleet. We destroyed nothing. We removed a threat. That is what this system was designed to do. Minseo stepped closer to the holographic image. You came here with threats and demands. You killed my friends to prove your strength. Now you know what humanity chose to forget. We built weapons that could erase civilizations. Then, we buried them because we believed in something better than fear. Thaxos said nothing. There was nothing to say. Go home, General. Minseo said quietly. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them humanity does not want war. But make sure they understand that we can end one. The displacement fields released the Eternal Dominion. Thaxos did not hesitate. His ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, fleeing the solar system. Minseo stood alone in the facility, surrounded by displays showing the power at her fingertips. She had just changed humanity's place in the galaxy, forever. She hoped her ancestors would approve of how she had chosen to use their gift. The news spread across the galaxy, faster than light itself. Within hours, every spacefaring civilization knew what had happened at Mars. The Valorian Empire, undefeated for 1,000 years, had lost 300 warships in 14 minutes to a species they had considered primitive. The reactions ranged from shock to terror to quiet satisfaction among species who had long resented Valorian dominance. Ambassador Jin Ho Choi stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The massive chamber held representatives from 42 species, and every eye, sensor, and visual organ was fixed on him. The tension in the air was thick enough to taste. The human delegation will explain these events, demanded Counselor Vex, a crystalline being whose body refracted light in angry red patterns. You have demonstrated weapons technology that violates multiple council treaties. You have displaced an entire military fleet without council authorization. You have destabilized galactic security. Jinho remained calm, though his heart pounded. With respect, Counselor, we defended our sovereign territory from invasion. The Valorian Empire issued an ultimatum, demanding we surrender installations located within our own star system. When we refused, they attacked. We responded appropriately. Buying the fines. We refused. Appropriately, Vex's light patterns shifted to sharp crimson. You erased 300 ships from existence. We displaced them, Jinho corrected. Every Valorian crew member is alive and unharmed. We could have destroyed them. We chose not to. That choice should tell you something about our intentions. Counselor Tillix, the Kresh observer who had been present on Mars, spoke up. The human account is accurate. I witnessed the Valorian attack. They fired first, killing 3 human researchers. The defensive response, while shocking in its scope, was measured. The installation specifically avoided lethal force. On Mars, Minseo continued her work with the Sentinel. She had not slept in 3 days. The facility's holographic records contained 15,000 years of human history that had been lost to time. She was determined to understand it all before anyone else could access the system. The ancient humans had been called the progenitors by the Sentinel. They had developed faster than light travel 10,000 years before the current era. They had explored dozens of star systems and made contact with 3 other spacefaring species. Relations had been peaceful until the Zothran appeared. The holographic records showed the Zothran as they had been. A species of conquerors who swept through space like a plague. They had destroyed 2 civilizations before reaching Earth. The war had been brutal and short. Earth's cities burned. Billions died in the first week. But humans had one advantage the Zothran had not anticipated. Humanity was very good at building weapons when survival was at stake. The progenitors had developed spatial displacement technology in months, driven by desperation and grief. They built the 47 installations in secret, deep within the solar system where the Zothran would not look. The installations fired once. Only once. The entire Zothran fleet, more than 2,000 ships, simply ceased to exist in normal space. The war ended instantly. The surviving Zothran on conquered worlds surrendered within days. Their will to fight broken by the absolute nature of their defeat. After the war, the progenitors faced a choice. They had weapons that could end any conflict, defeat any enemy, guarantee their security forever. But they had also seen what fear and escalation had cost them. Half their population was dead. Their planet was scarred by orbital bombardment. The other spacefaring species looked at Earth with terror, wondering if they would be next. So the progenitors made a decision that Minseo was only now beginning to understand. They deactivated the installations. They buried them. They scattered their civilization across the solar system in small, simple colonies. They deliberately forgot their technology, their weapons, their power. They chose to let their descendants start over, hoping they would build something better than an empire of fear. They gave us a gift, Minseo whispered, reading the final entries. Not just the weapons. The chance to prove we could be better than them, the Sentinel's voice responded. The progenitors believed that a civilization capable of such weapons needed wisdom more than power. They hoped their sacrifice would teach future generations to value peace. Did it work? You are here. You have the power to conquer the galaxy. You chose to defend instead of attack. You showed mercy to an enemy who showed you none. What do you think? Minseo looked at the displays showing the displaced Valorian fleet, held in pocket dimensions designed by her ancestors. 300 ships full of living beings who had thought they were about to die. She had held their lives in her hands and chosen to spare them. The weight of that choice pressed down on her. I think I understand why they buried these weapons, she said softly. Having this much power is terrifying. Across the galaxy, the Valorian Empire was experiencing its own crisis. General Thaxos had returned home and delivered his report to the Valorian High Command. The reception had been complicated. Emperor Calrix sat on his throne, a massive seat carved from a single piece of dark matter crystal. He had ruled the Valorian Empire for 300 years. In that time, he had seen the empire expand from 20 systems to 200. He had crushed rebellions, defeated rivals, and established Valorian dominance as the natural order of the galaxy. Now a species of primitive newcomers had demonstrated the ability to erase his fleet like dust. Tell me again, Calric said, his voice dangerously quiet. Thaxos knelt before the throne, his scales still pale from stress. The humans activated ancient defensive installations. The technology is unlike anything we have encountered. Our weapons could not touch them. Their weapons did not destroy us. They removed us from space itself. Therwind and 40, their weapons could not touch them. And the ships, the crews, according to the humans, they are alive and unharmed, held in what they call pocket dimensions. The humans claim they can return them at any time. Calrix considered this. He had not survived 300 years by being stupid. The humans had demonstrated overwhelming power, and then chosen not to use it fully. They could have killed 300,000 Valorian soldiers. Instead, they had imprisoned them safely and sent Thaxos home with a message. What did the humans say to you before releasing your ship? She said that humanity does not want war but can end one, Thaxos reported. She was an archaeologist named Minseo Park. Not a soldier, not a diplomat. A scientist who found these weapons by accident and suddenly had the power to destroy our entire fleet. And she chose mercy. Calrix leaned forward on his throne. That, General, is what concerns me most. Not that they have such weapons, but that they gave them to a scientist and she used them with restraint. What kind of species does that? Back on Earth, Jinho continued to face the Galactic Council's questions. For 6 hours, he had explained and re-explained the events at Mars. Some counselors understood, others remained hostile. But one question kept coming up, asked in different ways, by different species. What are humanity's intentions now? Asked Counselor Mira, a diplomatic being who had always been friendly to Earth. You have revealed weapons that could threaten every civilization in the galaxy. What will you do with this power? 2. Jinho had been waiting for this question. He had discussed it extensively with Earth's government and with Minseo. They had known this moment would define humanity's future in the galaxy. The Galactic Council was founded on principles of mutual security and peaceful cooperation, Jinho began. For 2 centuries, humanity has tried to uphold those principles. We have avoided conflict. We have shared our knowledge freely. We have worked to be good neighbors in a crowded galaxy. He paused, making eye contact with as many counselors as he could. The installations on Mars and throughout our solar system were built by our ancestors as a last resort against extinction. They are purely defensive. The Sentinel AI that controls them is programmed to activate only in defense of humanity or our allies. It cannot be used for conquest or aggression. It requires constant human authorization to function. You expect us to simply trust this? Vex demanded. No, Jinho said firmly. We expect you to verify it. We are prepared to allow a council inspection team full access to the Mars facility. We will share the basic principles of the technology, though not the weapons themselves. We will demonstrate that the Sentinel cannot be used offensively. This caused a stir in the chamber. Several counselors began speaking at once. More importantly, Jinho continued, raising his voice, Earth proposes a new role for itself in galactic affairs. We offer to serve as neutral arbiters in conflicts between council species. We offer the protection of our defensive installations to any species facing existential threats. We offer to be guardians, not conquerors. Why should we believe you will not become what the Valorians are? Another counselor asked. You have the power. Power corrupts. Because our ancestors had the same power 15,000 years ago, Jinho answered. They conquered nothing. They built these weapons, ended an existential war in hours, and then buried everything. They chose to forget their power because they believed peace was more valuable than dominance. We are their descendants. We inherited their weapons, but more importantly, we inherited their wisdom. In the Mars facility, Minseo received a communication from the Valorian Empire. It was not a threat or a demand. It was a question. Dr. Park, This is Ambassador Tyrex of the Valorian Diplomatic Corps. Emperor Calrix wishes to open negotiations for the return of our displaced fleet. He also wishes to discuss a non-aggression pact between our species. Minseo was surprised. She had expected retaliation, not diplomacy. The Empire is willing to negotiate? Dr. Park. You demonstrated the ability to erase our military from existence. Then you chose not to. That act of mercy bought you more credibility than 1,000 threats could have. The Emperor is many things, but he is not foolish. He recognizes that humanity could have started a war and chosen peace. Instead, we will return your fleet, Minseo said, but we need certain guarantees. No retaliation against Earth or our colonies, recognition of our sovereign rights to our home system, and participation in a collective security framework that prevents conflicts like this from happening again. The Emperor anticipated these terms. He is prepared to agree, with conditions of his own. And, over the next week, negotiations proceeded faster than anyone expected. The Valorian Empire, humbled but not broken, agreed to a non-aggression pact. They also surprised the galaxy by endorsing Earth's proposal to serve as neutral arbiters in galactic conflicts. If the humans can point these weapons at us and choose not to fire, Emperor Calrix announced publicly, then they have proven they possess the wisdom to wield such power. The Valorian Empire supports Earth's new role. It was a calculated move. Calrix understood that opposing Earth would unite the galaxy against the Valorians. Supporting Earth, however, made the Valorians look reasonable and positioned them as humanity's first ally under the new order. Minseo stood in the Mars facility, preparing to execute the displacement reversal protocol. The Sentinel had explained the process. It was simple, actually. The ships had not been destroyed or moved. They had been placed slightly out of phase with normal space-time. Returning them was just a matter of reversing the field rotation. Are you certain about this? The Sentinel asked. Once you demonstrate the ability to reverse the displacement, you lose a strategic advantage. The Valorians will know they can be returned if captured. That was never meant to be permanent, Minseo said. We are not jailers. We are defenders. The point was to stop them, not punish them. The progenitors would approve of your reasoning. Minseo activated the reversal sequence. Across the solar system, 47 installations hummed with controlled power. In the pocket dimensions where they had been held for a week, 300 Valorian warships began to phase back into normal space. The ships appeared exactly where they had vanished. Orbital positions adjusted for safety. Aboard each vessel, crews who had thought they might never see home again found themselves suddenly back in real space. Systems intact. Not a single casualty. In the command center of each ship, a message appeared in Valorian script. May peace be the legacy we all choose to build. From humanity, with hope. General Thaxos received the message on the Eternal Dominions bridge. He read it 3 times, then looked at his crew. They had been prepared to die. Instead, they had been spared by an enemy who could have destroyed them without effort. Set course for Valoria Prime, he ordered. Then, more quietly, log this in the ship's official record. We came here as conquerors. We return as students. The humans have taught us what true strength looks like. On Earth, Ambassador Jin Ho received confirmation that all Valorian ships had been safely returned. He allowed himself a small smile. The hard part was over. Now came the even harder part. Building the peace that humanity's ancestors had dreamed of 15,000 years ago. Minseo walked out of the Mars facility and looked up at the rust-colored sky. Somewhere up there, her ancestors had stood on ancient Earth and made a choice that had defined humanity's destiny. They had built weapons powerful enough to end wars instantly, then buried them rather than become tyrants. She understood now. The weapons were not the real gift. The gift was the choice. Every generation faced the same choice. Use power to dominate, or use wisdom to protect. The progenitors had made their choice. Minseo had made hers. The galaxy would remember what happened here. Not that humanity had weapons that could erase fleets, but that humanity had those weapons and chose mercy instead. That was the lesson that would reshape the galaxy. And it all started with an archaeologist digging in the red dust of Mars, finding a secret her ancestors had buried, so their children could inherit a better world. 6 months had passed since the Mars incident, as it was now called in historical records. The galaxy had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Humanity's role had shifted from minor species to something unprecedented. Guardians of peace, backed by weapons that could end any conflict instantly. Not everyone was happy about it. The Krell sovereignty was a mid-sized empire controlling 30 systems. For centuries, they had maintained their territory through careful diplomacy and strategic alliances. Their representative, Counselor Dax, had been one of the loudest voices opposing Earth's new role. Now he sat across from Ambassador Jin Ho in a private meeting chamber, his multiple limbs gesturing aggressively. "Your council inspection teams have been in our space for 3 weeks," Dax complained. "You investigate our defensive installations. You question our military commanders. You treat us like criminals. When we have violated no laws." Jin Ho kept his expression neutral. The investigation was requested by the Toral Republic after border incidents suggested the Krell were preparing for invasion. "We are simply verifying the facts." "And who gave Earth the authority to investigate anyone? You found ancient weapons and suddenly you are the galaxy's police force." The Galactic Council voted to approve Earth's oversight role by a margin of 34-8, Jin Ho reminded him. The Krell's sovereignty was among the 8 who opposed, but democracy means accepting outcomes you disagree with. Dax's skin flushed a darker shade of purple, indicating anger. Democracy, built on fear. Every species that voted for this did so because they are terrified of your weapons. That is not trust. That is coercion. Jin Ho leaned forward. "Counselor Dax, let me be direct. Our investigation found evidence that the Krell have been massing troops along the Toral border. You have moved 67 warships into attack positions. You are preparing for war, and you are angry that we caught you. We have the right to defend our territory. You do. But you do not have the right to launch aggressive wars. That is the entire point of the Council Charter that your government signed." Jin Ho pulled up a holographic display showing Krell military movements. "If you attack the Torals, we will stop you. Not because we want to police the galaxy, but because preventing wars is better than cleaning up after them." Dax stood abruptly. "This conversation is over. The Krell sovereignty will lodge a formal protest with the Council." After he left, Jin Ho rubbed his temples. This was the 4th such confrontation this month. Earth's new role was creating as many problems as it solved. Species who had planned expansion through conquest found themselves blocked. Old grievances could no longer be settled by force. The galaxy was being forced to find peaceful solutions, and not everyone appreciated it. On Mars, Minseo faced her own challenges. The facility had become a focal point for galactic attention. Every week brought new requests for access, for information, for demonstrations of the technology. She had become less archaeologist and more keeper of dangerous secrets. "Dr. Park, we have another delegation requesting a tour." Her new assistant, Sarah, informed her. Sarah had replaced J1. But Minseo still felt his absence like a wound that would not heal. "Who this time?" "The Zephron Collective. They claim to be researchers interested in spatial displacement theory." 9. Friend. 9. 9 as adjuster. I-9. 9 as adjuster. Minseo checked the Sentinel's security assessment. The Sentinel identifies 3 of their delegation as military intelligence operatives. Deny the request. Politely. This happened constantly. Species claimed academic interest while actually trying to gather intelligence on Earth's defensive capabilities. The Sentinel could identify most attempts at deception, but the constant vigilance was exhausting. "Dr. Park," the Sentinel's voice spoke through the facility's systems. I am detecting unusual energy signatures in the asteroid belt. Installation 23. Reports an attempted breach. Minsio's blood ran cold. Someone is trying to access one of the other installations? Confirmed. The breach attempt is sophisticated. They are using some form of quantum tunneling to bypass the dimensional phase barriers. Who? Unable to determine. The attempt is being made remotely. However, the technology signature matches Krell Engineering. Minseo immediately contacted Jinho on Earth. His face appeared on the holographic display, and he looked as tired as she felt. The Krell are trying to breach Installation 23, she told him without preamble. Jinho's expression hardened. Can they succeed? The Sentinel says no, but the attempt itself is a violation of a dozen treaties. They are trying to steal technology that could give them weapons like ours. I will confront Dax immediately. In the meantime, increase security on all installations. An hour later, Jinho stormed into the Galactic Council chamber, where an emergency session had been called. Counselor Dax sat calmly in his delegation's area, showing no signs of concern. The human delegation has accused the Krell sovereignty of attempting to breach secure Earth installations, announced the council speaker. Counselor Dax, you may respond. Dax stood slowly, his movements deliberate. The Krell sovereignty has conducted no such breach. We have limited our research to public information and academic inquiry, as is our right. Jinho activated a holographic display showing the quantum tunneling attempt in real time. This is happening right now, Counselor. The energy signature matches Krell military technology. You can deny it, but the evidence is clear. We are not the only species using quantum tunneling technology, Dax countered. This could be anyone. The Sentinel AI has identified specific engineering signatures unique to Krell designs, Jinho pressed. Stop this breach attempt immediately, or we will consider it an act of war. The chamber fell silent. Those words, from humanity's representative, carried weight. They never would have 6 months ago. Dax's expression shifted from calm to angry. You threaten us? You dictate to sovereign species? This is exactly what we feared. Earth has become the tyrant it claims to protect us from. We are protecting everyone from species who would steal weapons of mass destruction, Jinho shot back. Including your own people. Counselor, if you successfully breach an installation and misuse the technology, you could trigger a galactic conflict that would make the Valorian incident look like a minor skirmish. We would never. Counselor Dax, interrupted Counselor Mira. Perhaps the Krell sovereignty should reconsider its research programs. The suspicion alone damages your reputation. Other counselors began voicing similar sentiments. Even species who had opposed Earth's oversight role were uncomfortable with the implications of the Krell's actions. If one species could steal the displacement technology, others might try. The stability that humanity's weapons provided would collapse. Dax looked around the chamber and realized he had miscalculated. The Krell sovereignty will review our research initiatives. Any activities that may have been misinterpreted will be ceased immediately. Jinho did not smile. The breach attempt stopped 3 minutes ago. Thank you for your cooperation, Counselor. After the session ended, Jinho found himself alone with Counselor Mira in a side chamber. The gentle alien placed a tendril on his shoulder in a gesture of support. You are making enemies, Ambassador, Mira said softly. I know. But what choice do we have? If we do not enforce boundaries, species will test them. The technology we control is too dangerous to allow it to spread. I understand. But I worry about Earth's burden. You are forcing the galaxy to be peaceful, and that is a thankless task. The species you stop from fighting will resent you. The species you protect will fear you. You will satisfy no one. Jinho thought about that. My ancestors buried these weapons for 15,000 years. They hoped their descendants would never need them. We found them anyway. Wade. And Hazarder. We hoped the teamed. Now we have to figure out what to do with power we never wanted. And if you fail, if Earth becomes what the Valorians were, then we will have proven our ancestors wrong. That peace cannot be built, only enforced. That power always corrupts. Jinho looked at the empty council chamber. I hope we are better than that. On Mars, Min Seo dealt with the aftermath of the breach attempt. The Sentinel had not just blocked the intrusion. It had traced it back to its source. The data was disturbing. The breach originated from Krell space, but the technology included components from 4 other species. The Sentinel reported. This was a collaborative effort. A conspiracy? Min Seo asked. More likely a black market. Someone is selling advanced technology designed specifically to breach Earth's defensive installations. The Krell were customers, not creators. This was worse than a single species trying to steal secrets. This meant there was an organized effort to compromise Earth's defenses. Someone was profiting from selling tools designed to undermine the fragile peace. Can you trace it further? The trail leads to the frontier reaches, outside council jurisdiction. Beyond that, the data is encrypted. Min Seo made a decision. I need to go there. Find out who is selling this technology, and stop them. That would be dangerous. The frontier reaches are lawless. Earth has no authority there, which is exactly why it is the perfect place to sell illegal technology. Min Seo began preparing for the journey. If we do not stop this at the source, we will be fighting breach attempts forever. I cannot accompany you. My consciousness is distributed across all 47 installations. I cannot be removed from the network. Then give me tools I can use, something to defend myself with that does not require the full installation network. The Sentinel considered this request. It had never been asked to create portable versions of the displacement technology. The progenitors had deliberately avoided making personal weapons, understanding that such tools would spread uncontrollably. There is one option. I can create a limited-function device that generates micro-displacement fields. It would be effective for personal defense, but useless for large-scale military applications. Make it. 2 days later, Min Seo stood in a transport ship bound for the frontier reaches. Jinho had tried to talk her out of going, but she had been insistent. The weapon technology was her responsibility. If someone was trying to steal it, she needed to stop them. The device the Sentinel had created looked like a simple bracelet. It could generate displacement fields large enough to protect one person or small objects. It was powered by a microfusion cell that would last approximately 1 month before needing replacement. Most importantly, it could not be reverse engineered. If someone tried to open it, the device would self-destruct at the molecular level. The frontier reaches were everything Min Seo had heard about. Chaotic, dangerous, and utterly outside the law. The station where her contact waited was called Haven's End, a name that suggested both sanctuary and finality. She met her contact in a crowded bar filled with species from across the galaxy. The contact was a Valorian named Shex, a former military intelligence officer who had gone into private information brokering after the Mars incident. Dr. Park, Shex greeted her, his scales showing patterns that indicated both respect and nervousness. You are either very brave or very foolish to come here. I need to find who is selling breach technology. That information will cost you. Name your price. Shex leaned closer. I want immunity. There are Valorian military contracts on my head. Your people's influence with my government could make those disappear. I cannot promise that. Then we have nothing to discuss. Shex started to stand. Wait. Min Seo made a decision that might haunt her later. I will do what I can. No guarantees, but I will try. Shex sat back down. The seller you seek calls themselves the architect. No one knows their real identity or even their species. They operate through intermediaries and automated systems, but I know where their next auction is taking place. Where? Here. On Haven's End. In 3 days. They are selling a complete data package on Earth's installation network. Enough information for any species to build their own displacement weapons. Minseo felt sick. This was worse than she had imagined. Can you get me into the auction? Yes. But it will be dangerous. If anyone recognizes you as the human who controls the installations, they will kill you immediately. Then make sure no one recognizes me. 3 days later, Minseo sat in a private auction room disguised as a Toral merchant. The disguise was sophisticated, using holographic projection and careful body language coaching from Shex. Around her sat representatives from a dozen species, all eager to buy humanity's secrets. The auction began with smaller items: stolen military specs, encrypted communication codes, classified research data. Then, the architect's offering appeared on the central display. Complete installation network specifications, the automated auctioneer announced, including defensive protocols, power source schematics, and AI control systems. Opening bid: 5 million credits. The bidding was fast and vicious. Minseo watched in horror as the price climbed to 20 million credits. Species who had publicly supported Earth's peace efforts were bidding alongside known criminals and warlords. When the bidding reached 30 million credits, Minseo activated the device on her wrist. The Sentinel had included one additional function she had not mentioned to anyone. It could broadcast a tracking signal that would mark anyone in the room with a quantum signature visible only to Earth's installations. Everyone in the auction room was now tagged. Earth would know exactly who had tried to buy humanity's secrets. The auction concluded at 37 million credits. The buyer was a front corporation. But Minseo had gotten what she needed. As she left the room, she sent the tracking data to the Sentinel. "I have the information," she transmitted on an encrypted channel. "Everyone who participated in the auction is marked." "Received," the Sentinel confirmed. "Do you have the identity of the architect?" "No. But I have something better. I know what they are selling is fake." "Explain." Minseo allowed herself a small smile. "The installation specifications they are auctioning? I reviewed the data myself. It is outdated information from before you fully awakened. Anyone who tries to build weapons from those specs will fail spectacularly. The architect is selling useless data for millions of credits." Smile. "That is clever. But it does not solve the problem. If buyers discover the fraud, they will seek better information. Then we make sure they cannot. We have their identities now. We can neutralize this threat before it grows." Back on Earth, Jinho reviewed the data Minseo had sent. The list of auction participants read like a who's who of galactic troublemakers. Some were expected. Others were shocking. 2 council members, he said to Minseo via holographic communication. 2 sitting galactic council members tried to buy our installation specs. What will you do? Jinho looked at the evidence in his hands. He had power now, but using it poorly could shatter everything humanity had built. This was the test. Not whether Earth could defend itself, but whether Earth could wield power justly. We expose them, he decided. Not publicly. Not immediately. We approach each government privately, show them the evidence, and give them the chance to remove their representatives quietly. If they refuse, then we go public. And the architect? We find them. And we make sure everyone in the galaxy knows that stealing Earth's secrets will not end well. Creditor. Minseo nodded. I will keep hunting. There are still leads to follow. Be careful, Minseo. We changed the galaxy, but that does not mean the galaxy will thank us for it. As the call ended, Minseo looked out at the chaos of Haven's End Station. Somewhere out there, the architect was counting their profits, unaware that humanity was coming for them. The progenitors had buried their weapons to give their descendants a choice. Minseo had made her choice at Mars when she showed mercy to the Valorians. Now she was making another choice. To protect the gift her ancestors had given her, no matter the cost. The weapons were powerful, but the responsibility that came with them was heavier than any technology. The galaxy was learning that humanity did not just have the power to end wars. Humanity had the will to prevent them from starting in the first place. And that, more than any weapon, was what made Earth's forgotten war machine truly dangerous. 1 year after the Mars incident, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new order. Wars had not disappeared, but they had decreased dramatically. Species still had disputes, but they now brought them to Earth for mediation rather than settling them with weapons. The change was profound, but so was the resentment it generated. Ambassador Jin Ho stood in his office on Earth, looking at reports from across the galaxy. In the past month alone, humanity had mediated 7 border disputes, prevented 3 potential wars, and exposed 2 attempts to acquire displacement technology. The work was endless and largely thankless. Ambassador, his aide interrupted. You have an urgent message from Valoria Prime. Emperor Calrix requests immediate communication. Jin Ho accepted the call. Calrix's face appeared, and the Valorian Emperor looked genuinely concerned rather than his usual calculating self. Ambassador Choi, we have a problem. A serious one that affects both our peoples. I am listening. The hegemony of Krell is no longer just trying to steal your technology. They are preparing for war. Not with you directly, but they plan to attack 3 smaller species under Earth's protection. They believe you cannot defend everyone at once. Jin Ho felt his stomach drop. You are certain of this intelligence? Completely. Our networks inside the Krell military are extensive. They are preparing to strike simultaneously at the Toral Republic, the Ven Collective, and the Mresh Confederacy. All 3 species requested Earth's protection after Mars. The Krell believe that by forcing you to respond to multiple threats, they can expose the limitations of your installations. When? 2 weeks, perhaps less. After the call ended, Jin Ho convened an emergency meeting of Earth's Strategic Council. The situation was exactly what they had feared since taking on the Guardian role. The displacement installations were powerful, but they were fixed, defensive positions. They could not be everywhere at once. We need to move installations closer to the threatened systems, suggested one council member. The installations cannot be moved, Jin Ho replied. They are integrated into the solar system's structure. Moving them would take years and might destabilize the entire network. Then we establish new installations in those systems. With what knowledge? We barely understand the technology we have. Building new installations would take decades, and we have 2 weeks. On Mars, Min Seo faced the same problem from a different angle. She had been working with the Sentinel for months, trying to understand the full scope of the progenitor technology. Now she needed answers the Sentinel might not want to give. Sentinel. The Krell are planning to attack Earth's allies in systems we cannot directly defend. Is there any way to extend the installation network's range? The installations were designed to defend the solar system only. Extending their range would require fundamental modifications that I am not authorized to make. Not authorized? You are the controlling AI. Who would authorize you? The progenitors included safeguards. The installations can only be modified by consensus of multiple human operators carrying the builder genetic markers. This prevents any single individual from misusing the technology. Min Seo thought quickly. How many operators do we need? Minimum of 3. Currently, only you have been authenticated. Then we find 2 more. Run genetic scans of Earth's population. Find people who carry the markers. The Sentinel processed the request. Scanning. There are 472 individuals across Earth and its colonies who carry sufficient genetic markers. However, authenticating them and training them in the system would take time you do not have. What if we do not extend the network? What other options exist? The progenitors designed one alternative. The installations can generate mobile displacement fields attached to ships. These fields would be much smaller and less powerful than the full installation network. But they could travel to distant systems. The trade-off is that powering mobile fields would drain the installation network significantly. You would be vulnerable here, while protecting others elsewhere. Minseo understood the dilemma immediately. Humanity could protect its allies, but doing so would leave Earth exposed. It was a test of commitment. Did Earth mean what it said about being guardians, or would they prioritize their own safety? She contacted Jinho immediately. I have an option, but you will not like it. After she explained the mobile displacement fields, Jinho was silent for a long moment. You are saying we have to choose between defending Earth and defending our allies. Yes. The Krell are betting we will choose ourselves. If we do, our credibility as guardians disappears. Every promise we made becomes worthless. And if we defend our allies but leave Earth vulnerable, then we trust that our reputation will make attacking Earth unthinkable. We bet everything on the hope that the galaxy has learned to fear what happens when humans are threatened. Jinho laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Our ancestors buried these weapons, hoping we would never need them. Now we have to risk everything on a bluff. It is not a bluff if we are willing to follow through. The question is whether we trust that the galaxy has changed in the past year. The decision went to Earth's full government council. The debate lasted 18 hours. Some argued for defending Earth first. Others insisted that abandoning allies would make humanity no better than the Valorians had been. In the end, the vote was close, but clear. Earth would defend its allies, even if it meant leaving home vulnerable. The next week was a flurry of activity. The Sentinel identified 7 ships that could carry mobile displacement fields. They were not military vessels, just standard transport ships, but they would carry humanity's most powerful defensive technology to distant systems. Each ship would be crewed by volunteers who understood they might not return. Minseo volunteered to lead one ship herself. Jinho tried to argue, but she was insistent. I am the only authenticated operator, she said. The mobile fields will respond better to my commands than anyone else's. Besides, I need to see this through. These weapons are my responsibility. They are humanity's responsibility, Jinho corrected. But I understand. Be careful, Minseo. The galaxy is watching. The 7 ships launched simultaneously, each heading for a different threatened system. Minseo's ship, the Horizon's Promise, made for the Toral Republic. The journey would take 3 days at maximum faster than light speed. During the journey, Minseo worked constantly with the Sentinel, learning to operate the mobile displacement field. It was more complex than the fixed installations, requiring constant adjustments and power management. The field could protect an area roughly the size of a small moon, but maintaining it required intense concentration. The progenitors used these mobile fields only twice, the Sentinel told her. Both times, to evacuate populations from doomed worlds. They were never intended as offensive weapons. We are not using them offensively. We are protecting people who cannot protect themselves. The progenitors would approve. They believed that power without compassion was tyranny. The Horizon's Promise arrived at the Toral Republic just as Krell warships entered the system. There were 50 of them, more than enough to overwhelm the Toral's modest defense fleet. The Toral government had been frantically evacuating civilians, expecting annihilation. Then Minseo's ship appeared, and everything changed. This is Dr. Minseo Park of Earth. She broadcast on all frequencies. The Toral Republic is under Earth's protection. Krell forces, you will withdraw immediately, or face displacement. The Krell commander, a veteran named Brax, laughed over the channel. 1 human ship against 50 of ours? You are far from your precious installations, human. You have no power here. 1. I gave you a warning. You chose not to listen. Minseo activated the mobile displacement field. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The field expanded from the Horizon's Promise, like a bubble of reality distortion. When it touched the first Krell warship, that ship simply ceased to exist in normal space. Then another vanished. And another. All ships. Attack that human vessel, Brax ordered desperately. destroy it before. His ship was the next to vanish. Within 10 minutes, all 50 Krell warships had been displaced. The Toral system was safe. Minseo felt exhaustion wash over her. Operating the mobile field was far more draining than she had expected. She had saved the Torals, but she needed rest before she could do anything else. Similar scenes played out in the other threatened systems. Earth's 7 ships arrived and displaced the attacking Krell forces. In each case, the Krell had believed themselves safe from Earth's power. In each case, they had been proven catastrophically wrong, but the operation came at a cost. Back in the solar system, the installations were running at minimal power, drained by the need to support 7 mobile fields across dozens of light years. Earth was vulnerable exactly as the Sentinel had warned. The Krell government, humiliated by the loss of over 300 warships in a single day, made a desperate decision. If Earth could defend everyone, they would attack Earth itself. With the installations weakened, humanity's homeworld was exposed. Counselor Dax personally led a fleet of 200 Krell warships toward Earth. It was an all-or-nothing gamble. Either they would break humanity's power, or the Krell sovereignty would cease to exist as a threat. On Earth, Jin-Ho watched the approaching fleet with grim resignation. The Sentinel confirmed that the installations could not repel an attack of this size in their current weakened state. Recalling the mobile fields would take time Earth did not have. "We made our choice," Jin-Ho said to his advisors. "We protected our allies. Now we face the consequences." But the Krell fleet never reached Earth. As they crossed into the outer solar system, they found themselves surrounded. Valorian warships appeared from faster-than-light travel by the hundreds. Then came ships from the Mresh Confederacy, the Ven Collective, the Toral Republic. Even the Galactic Council dispatched its security forces. Over 2,000 ships from dozens of species had come to defend Earth. Counselor Dax stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "Why? Why are you defending them?" Emperor Calrix's voice answered over an open channel. "Because Earth defended us when they did not have to. Because they showed mercy when they could have shown cruelty. Because they kept their promises even when it put them at risk. That is worth defending." Counselor. The Krell fleet found itself hopelessly outnumbered. Dax had no choice but to surrender. His ships were escorted peacefully out of the solar system, and the Krell sovereignty's government fell within days. The new Krell leadership immediately sued for peace. When Minseo returned to Earth 2 weeks later, she found the solar system still filled with allied ships. They had not left after defending Earth. They had stayed, wanting to thank humanity personally for what they had done. Jin-Ho met her ship at the orbital station. "You risked everything," he said. "We risked everything. And we learned something important," Minseo replied. "The weapons are not what protect us. The choices we make are what protect us. Our ancestors understood that. That is why they buried the installations. Not to hide weapons, but to force future generations to choose peace first. The galaxy chose to defend us. I did not expect that. Maybe that is the point. We gave them a reason to. We proved that power could be used to protect instead of conquer. That changed everything." Over the following months, the galaxy continued to change. Species who had spent centuries in conflict began finding peaceful solutions. The threat of Earth's weapons helped, but more important was the example Earth had set. Power was meaningless without the wisdom to use it justly. The Galactic Council reformed itself with Earth's input. New treaties established collective security agreements. The displacement technology remained uniquely human, but the principles behind it spread widely. Species began to see strength in protection rather than aggression. Minseo eventually stepped down as primary operator of the installations. She had found and authenticated 2 other operators, both carrying the progenitor genetic markers. Together, they formed a council that would ensure no single person ever had sole control of such power again. She returned to being an archaeologist, but her focus had changed. Instead of digging for the past, she now worked to preserve the lessons it had taught. She wrote extensively about the progenitors, about their choice to bury their weapons, about the philosophy that had saved humanity twice, first 15,000 years ago, and again at Mars. One day, she stood in the Mars facility for what might be the last time. The Sentinel's voice greeted her, as always. Dr. Park. You are leaving? Yes. It is time for others to carry this burden. I have done what I needed to do. The progenitors would be proud of you. You inherited their weapons and their wisdom. You used both well. I hope so. Tell me, Sentinel, do you think they knew? The progenitors who buried you? Did they know we would face this test? They hoped you would not need to, but they prepared for the possibility that you would. They believed their descendants would make better choices than they had made. Looking at the galaxy now, I believe they were correct. Mincio left the facility and looked up at the Martian sky. Somewhere beyond those rust-colored clouds, her ancestors had stood on ancient Earth and made a choice that had echoed across 15,000 years. They had built weapons powerful enough to end all wars, then buried them because they believed peace was worth more than power. She had found those weapons by accident. She had activated them out of necessity. She had used them with restraint because her ancestors had taught her, across an impossible gulf of time, what true strength looked like. The galaxy had learned the same lesson, not because humanity had weapons that could erase fleets, but because humanity had those weapons and chose to use them only to protect, never to conquer. Earth's forgotten war machine had awakened, and the Valorian Empire's warships had been erased from existence. But that was not the story that would be remembered. The story that mattered was what happened after. How humanity chose mercy over vengeance. How they risked everything to protect their allies. How they proved that power without wisdom was just another form of weakness. The progenitors had given their descendants two gifts. The first was the weapons themselves, powerful enough to end any threat. The second was the wisdom to know when not to use them. Minseo had inherited both. So had the galaxy. And in the end, the wisdom proved more powerful than the weapons ever could be. 15,000 years ago, humanity's ancestors had asked a question. Could a species build weapons of ultimate power and still choose peace? The answer had taken millennia to find, but it was clear now. Yes, if they had the courage to try. The galaxy was learning that lesson. One peaceful day at a time, they were building the future the progenitors had dreamed of. A future where ancient war machines stayed buried not because they were forgotten, but because they were no longer needed. That was the real victory. Not defeating enemies, but making enemies unnecessary. Mincio walked away from the facility, leaving it in capable hands. The Sentinel would continue its watch. The installations would remain ready if ever needed. But hopefully, they would never wake again. She had work to do. A galaxy to help rebuild. A peace to maintain. A legacy to honor. The war machine was dormant once more. And this time, humanity hoped it would stay that way forever. Because the best weapon was the one you never had to use.